know any female entrepreneurs?
Like a very slight percentage.
Unfortunately, I do not know any female entrepreneur.
I can think of a couple men off of the top of my head, but for females, it's a harder question.
I came to the UK when I was 8 years old, and at the time my mother had finished her master's degree at the University of Manchester and got a job in the UK. So I came with her and I entered the state school system within the UK. Now, it was a really big shock to the system. I'm a Chengdu girl, I'm a city girl. But I ended up being thrown into this tiny Yorkshire village, and it was a huge change for me. And at the same time, I didn't speak any English. So it was, on the surface, very exciting, but also a huge challenge to me. So from there, I went through the school, high school, college, and ended up first at UCL, but I wasn't keen on the course I was studying there, so I changed to Manchester University, where I completed an undergraduate degree in French and Chinese, minoring in Spanish. And after that, I came to the University of Oxford to complete a master's degree in French literature. Hello! So we're now on the train to London for my day of meetings. First up, we're going to King's College London to meet the director of the Women's Entrepreneurs Programme. At the moment, there's no agenda, we're just there to share some best practices, and then we're going to go on to meet the CEO of SheWings and to discuss some possible collaborations. 好，我们现在到 KCL 了。我现在进去和他们的 Women Entrepreneurship Program Director 先见个面，开个会，然后出来再见你们。拜拜。Women suffer from something called imposter syndrome. We don't believe we have the confidence to do a lot of things. We don't believe we have the skills to do a lot of things.
Considered entrepreneurship, but I didn't even think about it in those words because there's quite a big barrier, not just because of being female, but because I was born in the Soviet Union.
I also think that as a university student, not earning any money, not being able to work, there's also a barrier in terms of a startup fund. Any way of accessing money is sort of limited.
And I think that's the first thing we need to address. Now, of course, this is coming from yourself, but it's also definitely coming from society. Over so many years, it's being a patriarchy. So obviously, women are made to feel like they are inferior. Now, we have a lot of movements currently going on to empower more women, but at the end of the day, even with the female students I speak to at Oxford University, they still don't believe they're good enough to start their own business, they don't think they're good enough to go for the best jobs. It is a problem. So the meeting went really well. I met Amandine, who is head of the Women's Entrepreneur Program, and she is Swiss. So anyway, it was a very fun meeting.
So Maggie, can you tell us about your first attempt to run your own business, please?
I started my first business when I was in the first year of my undergraduate degree at the University of Manchester. It's a funny story because I didn't quite think this is what I'm going to do. So the company is called Shut Up and Dance, and we specialized in ballroom and Latin dancewear, and now we're moving towards fashion in general. The thing is, I started for two reasons. Firstly, I joined loads of societies as a fresher, and one of them was ballroom and Latin dancing. My commitment to exercise is not high, so the only way to get me to exercise is if I had the outfit. So I thought I would buy a pair of dance shoes to make sure I go to dance class. The thing is, I found dance shoes in the UK were really expensive, and my commitment to actually going to dance class wasn't that high. And what I did was I made friends with the seller, and we talked about the shoes, and eventually I became business partners with her. And it's just absolutely crazy to think that this is how my business started. So that's the end of today. Clearly the two meetings didn't go quite to plan, but of course overall they were fairly successful. Certainly the KCL one. I would hope that from here we have some great collaborations. Tomorrow, 2 more meetings, so I need to get back to Oxford, and yeah, time to rush to the train station now.
What about starting a business in general? I know there's a lot of risks. What do you want to tell people about how to overcome these?
I think actually there's a lot of barriers, hidden barriers, way before just starting a business. Like if we say start a business, or in Chinese 做生意, it sounds so easy, right? But the point is, when you speak to people, and I speak to a lot of students from really great universities like at Imperial, at Oxford, at LSE, they all say the same thing. Regardless of gender, they say, well, I don't have a great idea. So then I say, well, okay, say you just magically had a great idea. You're going to build the next Facebook. What are you going to do next? How do you grow that? They're like, oh, actually, I don't know where to begin. I don't have the skills, I don't have the knowledge, I know nothing about business. So I think there is this huge gap within our education system, even at the best universities, where students don't get to see the real world. So I think enterprise education, even from a very young age, is very important. So for me, to begin to start a business, what we need to do before that is to understand how that happens. Then we need to fill that knowledge gap. Okay, so that is what we do with Girls in Charge. Through games, in 5 hours, we fill these gaps as much as we can to get you to the stage where you can start to think, okay, this is what I'm good at. How do I turn that into a business idea? Because essentially, entrepreneurial mindset is just looking at things and thinking, how do I make money from it? It's very simple. Yet a lot of people are stuck in this repetitive mode where they're thinking, I can't possibly do that, or they just don't get to the point where they think, how do I make money from it? So that is the biggest hurdle. Once you get over that, of course, the entrepreneurial life is chaotic, but it's also really fun. That is kind of the side I enjoy. You can do a lot of creative stuff. You can pretty much do whatever you want because you're the boss. Obviously, like my day in London, it didn't go fully to plan, but that's also the brilliance of it. With difficulties and with challenges, it's kind of depressing at times, but you'll get through it because, life has to move on. So I think at the moment, the biggest problem is to get women to start thinking bigger, to dream bigger, and to actually go for it.